Consider This, a news and information program recorded on the campus of the University of Nebraska at Omaha. From the Fireside Lounge in the Milo Bales Student Center, here is your host, Carol Schrader.
Welcome back to UNO and to Consider This. My guest this week is someone who is known on this campus with one hat and a related but much different hat to the public at large. John Langen, Dr. John Langen is with me today. He is probably best known as the president of the Omaha School Board, and given the most recent voter decision regarding your tax levy override, but I should mention that you are also a UNO associate professor in the College of Education, and you head up the Department of Teacher Education.
Teacher Education, correct.
So just, you have a couple of credentials here and there, in addition to being a taxpayer.
There you go.
Right. We saw a pretty sound defeat early this month, at a time when maybe the voters were just in the mood to do that. Mm-hmm. But you head up the board that represents us, that's said to the voters, we need permission to raise this tax levy ceiling because we have some serious problems, and the voters said no.
Right.
You were worried that they would, were you not?
We were. We went into it, Carol, with mixed emotions and a great deal of pessimism at first, in the sense of the times, the international times, the national times, the local times, in terms of the economy, the world crises, etc. People are at unrest in a lot of arenas right now. And just take the corporations from Nebraska that are wailing and from the economy. We were nervous because people are nervous about their daily income day to day. So we went into it that way. But after we went through the process and talked to every civic group that would listen to us, every church group, anyone who would agree, we would go and talk to them. We would hear people say, John, I think I hear the argument and I think I agree that the youngsters in the Omaha public schools are being shortchanged. But having said that, it's still such a time that I can't find myself voting for it. I could buy that argument, but I felt a sense of energy as I moved through there, and then kidded myself. I said, it'll be close, 48-52, but we got waxed.
You got waxed, and I think the timing has a lot to do with it.
Sure,
not just the uncertainty, but we come off a state tax increase.
Sure.
Not a state of Nebraska tax increase. We come, you're in not necessarily as aging a school district as you once were. You've got lots of kids in school, but you're still talking about people on fixed incomes who have not seen increases that equal the cost of living, even though that's been fairly held in check. You see people with 401ks that are going down the tubes, and they're close to retiring.
Sure.
So generally, bad timing.
Right.
But I think there might be some other things we need to talk about before we talk about what next. One of the things, and I don't want to be Monday morning quarterback, was, and I heard it a lot on talk radio, although I take that with a grain of salt, but I heard it from people I know. They were afraid, they felt there was a little bit of scare tactic involved, as opposed to, this is what we've done, this is where we've cut, this is where we would have to cut, and we will cut across the board, or we will be frugal across the board. I don't know if people really believe. Somehow in the psyche there's that whole thing, the district's top heavy, they have all these, they don't feel you're being honest, and we're a little scary.
Let me take one step back and talk about one other variable we didn't talk about. The state in the funding formula told school districts to go to the voters if they wanted to do capital construction. So keep in mind, just 2.5 years ago, we went for $254 million to our voters, and they gave it to us. So they did that, and it was hard. So as you talk about a campaign, the thing we had a difficult time to discern was the notion of people say, wait a minute, we just gave you $254 million.
So you were trying to separate from the buildings, books,
human resources,
paraprofessionals,
support,
things like that.
Techs, counselors, yes.
So there was a method.
We had both the confusion there and the fact that we had gone to the voters once before, and I'll say it up front and personal. The city of Omaha sends an inordinate percentage of the dollars used to fund state public school education to Lincoln compared to the short-change dollars that come back to the school district of Omaha.
We will give you plenty of time to talk
And
about
that was
state
our
aid.
argument. But in terms of getting the message, I'm not a public relations person, et cetera. We had a professional hired to help us with that. And frankly, and this is, there were discussions about, wait a minute, we're not going to put, I'll give you a John Langen response. I said, you better not put class size on there because this board member will go to the grave fighting for class size, because in that $254 million bond issue, we made a commitment to the voters of Omaha on the student assignment plan, which has class size built into it. So those are the types of things. And Carol, there is not a political effort. So I'll say political effort. That be a candidate, a referendum issue like the levy override or anything else, where people don't go over the line, if you will, to say, here's what we'll do to make them do this or do that. Now, what I think I hear you say that you're hearing people respond is that, oh, it was all scare tactic. Well, it wasn't, number one. And number two, the real measure, the real issue is best answered in the sense of they're saying the day after the election, they said, well, you're going to have to reconnoiter now and get the groups together. And I said, no, wait a minute. The levy override was one step in a long-range plan from 1995 when they started shortchanging the Omaha Public Schools to the final step in the legislature, or if necessary, the last step, and I don't even like to talk about it, but taking legal action if we have to. The levy override was asking for a 5-year stopgap measure, not to add programs, not to add counselors, not to do anything, but to say, if we need the money because what we believe is going to happen, Dennis Poole has projected $11 million shortfall next year, rather than cut human resources, we would use monies from the levy override request to hold where we are at this point so our kids don't fall farther behind in the sense of resources being expended to them. And that message is a difficult message to sell, and it's really difficult in any case to sell. My next door neighbor, who I think loves me like a son, said, listen, you're my friend, but I'm not voting for that. I can't afford it.
Well, we can only look next door to District 66, which has a superlative school district. People move for that school district. I'm not saying they're superior to you, but I mean they're known.
We need another show for me to talk about that.
Okay, but the perception of the people that live and have their children schooled in that district,
right,
is that they get what they pay for. They want things to stay the way they are. They had passed an override before, and it was just a handful of votes that it squeaked by.
Right.
I mean, and they saw a district that didn't go to the max ever, kind of just went above, went over the levy ceiling, but kind of in their minds, in the perception, they didn't go overboard. Okay, that was the perception, I think, given what I heard after that override vote. So, and they moved to that, many people moved to the district for that reason. Right, wrong,
they
crazy,
moved
or
for
not.
other reasons, Carol. I speak from here.
Right.
And I'll tell you, their best support for their override, you know what it was? The fact that they are surrounded by the Omaha Public Schools. Many of their voting issues, many of the supports that they receive are the fact that they are an island surrounded by an urban school district.
And that gives
Understand
them
that.
some things that they don't have to worry about that you do.
Thank you very much, and good night.
And I am going to get to that. One of the things that, and the World Herald tried to touch on it in an article, I think, is that in addition to being the largest school district in the state, which should enjoy some economies of scale.
Exactly.
They have the most diverse student population.
Exactly.
They are an urban school district with
Exactly.
every hallmark of an urban school district.
Right.
We could spend 2 shows on that. It has special challenges, has the most diverse number of special ed students, behavioral student problems. Not that it's a bad school, but I mean, you just are dealing with, and because of the laws requiring that all these students get appropriate attention.
And well, the law should.
And we have the multi-language problem.
Absolutely.
The largest number of English as a second language
Absolutely.
students. That the cost of doing business may not enjoy the economies of scale just because we're big.
Right.
So kind of offsetting penalties maybe.
But let me say, on the heels of that comment about the plight of an urban school district with 51% free and reduced lunch, with second language speakers larger than most school districts, just the second language speakers alone in the state of Nebraska. Fragile youngsters, because we have 3 major medical centers here that are in the schools. Homeless youngsters larger than probably 50% of the districts in this state. So you have all those things, and then you look at it and say, okay, what's the average spent on a youngster in the state of Nebraska per pupil expenditure? And then I say, okay, if you know the average, where would you think Omaha youngsters should be against that average? It doesn't take rocket science for me to know that given all of the things I just described, they should be above that average someplace. So you
The dollars
decide where.
spent per student.
Right. Instead, we're $350 below the state average and $2,000 below the districts we've talked about in this show to date.
Well, that would be basically 66.
Thank you very much. Well, that's one of them, but we have 7 other school
Right,
districts.
in the area. But
Right.
I mean, I think that
And the point with that is not, listen, I laud 66 for what they do and how they do it, and I would do the same thing. But in Lincoln, when a decision is made about youngsters in the city of Lincoln, it's for all youngsters. In Omaha, when a decision is made about the youngsters in the Omaha School District, there are 6 other school districts in this state and 1 across the river that are not impacted by that decision. And I don't think the state understands that. I don't think the legislature understands it. I don't think the governor understands it. And certainly, I think the voters in OPS didn't get a good enough job from John Langen and the rest of us to get that story out well enough. And again, the override lost. I wasn't surprised win or lose here. I was surprised by the fact that we got, I'll use the term again, we got waxed.
Okay, so we've gone over a little bit of the past. Now the question is the future.
What do we do next?
And there was a rather contentious meeting this past week at the Omaha
Not me.
School Board. Some of the members of the Nebraska Taxpayers for Freedom and a couple of school board members kind of got into it. It's a very emotional
Right.
and motion charged issue, this whole thing. You will have to do something, and probably a combination of things.
Sure.
But will you have to look ahead at really where, in the short term, where you will possibly have to cut?
Yes. Yes, and I'll say this, that the media was there to focus on the 3 minutes of not laudable behavior by a lot of people. But they left before we talked about what we were going to do, and that is, where do you go from here budget-wise? And I'll say it to you, and hopefully the people watching the show will hear this, and that is that the levy override wasn't the place where we said, okay, we get that and then our woes are over. We had a plan back here. The levy override was part of that plan, and now we're moving beyond that. So the first thing we're going to do is start looking at dates. When do we have to make critical decisions? Now, what we know immediately is we have to start looking closely at whether or not we make decisions, and Monday night was the first example. We delayed the decision on lease purchase of automobiles to replace vehicles for the district, and we made a decision to delay purchase of update of technology in the district. That doesn't mean we're not going to do that, or someplace we won't come to a compromise to do portion of it or some piece of it, but those decisions need to be made now. The next one is mandates that come from the state. We're like every other part of professional education, Carol. When people tell us to do something, we say, yes, sir, how much and how high, and you 3 bags full and go home. What we're about to say is, you give us mandates anymore without money, and we're going to tell you we'll do what we can, but that's what we're going to do.
Do you think, you mentioned lawsuit earlier, which is an option you have to at least say it is out there.
Sure.
Is that probably an area where you might have a shot at winning a legal battle? An unfunded mandate? I don't mean one in particular, just just this concept.
Well, that's part of it. That's part of the shot. And I don't even want to talk about, because I can tell you there are 20 plus lawsuits in urban districts in the United States that have been heard, and they're all winners. Every one has won. That's not the focus.
And I know that's not your goal. And you don't want to make.
I don't even want to do that, because that costs money for the taxpayers.
Right.
It costs money to all of us. The legal.
But that's on that plate. That's far away. That could be there.
That's out in the horizon. We hope to never get there, and that's why I said.
What are some of these mandates that obviously this whole testing thing, which I think taxpayers like the concept of some sort of benchmarks and some sort of standards.
Sure.
But as I understand it, districts all over the state are doing different tests, and you're developing your own.
Exactly.
And there's got to be a tremendous cost involved in just the development of tests.
Absolutely, it's astounding the cost. I'll give you one example of a standard. It's the only one that there are a couple of, but the 6 traits writing samples that we've done in the school districts were something that the state said we're going to use 6 traits. That's fine. Some of the districts in the state have been using those and had geared up, etc. Some of us had not been using those. So what happens? We get the mandate, we're going to do 6 traits writing. We get no funding for it. So we do staff development, we do implementation, and now we test. So school district over here tests their
Well, there's
6,
that whole apples
they
and
test their
oranges
6
thing.
kids. School district over here tests 45,000 kids. Now, just think about the paper, let alone the time to grade, the time to teach, the time to reflect, the time to assess the writing samples, and then the time to reteach. I mean, so those types of things are crazy. Other quick examples, the notion of notification of, I'm blocking on it, but it was a simple notification through the health department saying school districts must notify youngsters of, and I'm blanking on the notification. But again, you post a sign and show it to the 6 kids in District A, and we have 45,000 youngsters we're supposed to respond to. Anything they tell us to do for all youngsters. The legislation that, in effect, some of the news media was generated was the turnaround time for public information. If we get a request for public information, and it's a document that the Omaha Public Schools keeps, so, for instance, right now we're looking at this notion of student information. So we have 45,000 youngsters that we have student information on. If Joe Public walks in right now, or a news media or anyone else and says, we'd like that list, we're obligated within 4 days to provide that list because of state legislation and federal legislation. We're looking closely at the state legislation, and we're going to lobby to get that changed, because that's funding issue, and you're saying, okay, you don't want us to spend money statewide, you don't want to give us any more, we can't get it from the voters, we've got to look at other places. So that's another place we're looking to save dollars.
Is it just a myth that OPS or any of our school districts that are, larger than a hat box are top heavy?
I love the top heavy argument for our district because we are the lowest student administrator ratio in the metro area. We're lower than the state average, and we're lower by far from the national average. And let me
But again, I would think you would get some economy of scale there.
Well, if you just do a number count versus, again, a percentage ratio of administrators to teachers to students, that's why I said we win that battle. And let me tell you the criteria used in the Public Pulse, in a letter from one of the tax groups they send to me, say, you have so darn many cars in that TAC building parking lot. Father Schlegel's going to put up a big Blue Jay and say, these cars are Creighton University students. People don't know that. And frankly, it's a poor selling job on our part. We ought to put a demarcation line and say, from here on over are Creighton University college students. But that's the criteria they're using for the notion that we have top-heavy administration. I had a call this morning on a talk show. They said the school superintendent makes too much money. He makes $130,000. He has 5,000 employees. He has a budget of $400 million plus. And my comment on that is, if you want to compare apples to apples, take that salary, compare it to the superintendents in the metro area, and then if you want a bigger shock, go out to the outlying districts and compare it to that. You'll fall over if you see it. It's amazing. If you did per pupil expenditure in comparison to those average ratios, he'd make about $7 million a year. So people are quick to sit as you use the armchair quarterback, and I was probably that same way too when I was a patron and yelling about taxes. But the issue is that you have to get in there and ask, and I don't mind people challenging us and raising issues, but they need to know the facts. And the facts in terms of administration is we're the lowest percentage of administration in the metro area and lower than the state. And John McKeel's cut in his administration 60-some people out of the TAC building.
I've never seen you more animated.
I know. It's because and
how's your blood pressure?
And and that's part of the Monday night faux pas. It's not good to do that. The board members and I think the individual probably that's a sign that on this campus it's happening in our classes. It's happening all over, and it's part of that world, national, local, and certainly the budget scene, and that's what's happening. And my passion goes for the 45,000 kids in the Omaha Public Schools. I don't kiddingly say it, I'm the last of 10 kids who grow up I was probably free and reduced lunch at the time, but they didn't have it. And so I fight for the kids in the back row, and I always will. That's what I'm about.
So you will have to consider, you said you've put off some decisions, and just kind of wait and see.
Right.
You talked to your board Monday night, as I understand it, from a news report, the World Herald.
I did.
Not to discuss possible cuts with the public, the news media. Or at least, I mean, because people get nervous because you don't have for sure answers.
Right.
And you use the example of, if you say you might cut widgets, then the widget makers go bizarre.
Right.
But my first reaction, maybe it's just the journalist in me, and it's not because I don't like you, is this going to be an open process? Is there going to be some open discussion about where possible cuts? I know you don't want to say even what possible cuts could be because people will always seize on that's what you should do.
But Carol, thanks for the question, because as I say, I don't want to put them on the table now. Before any cuts are made, they'll be out for public scrutiny and for public dialogue. If any group has a list of 41 or 51 or any money savings, this district can show you a history of hearings on the budget, of open meetings, of receiving facts, of receiving phone calls, till whodunit, and we don't get a lot. What I'm hoping is this will call attention to the fact that when cuts start, it's a Pram oil filter, pay me now, pay me later. People are going to start saying, I want to talk about it now because you're going to cut my favorite piece. And so that will be open to the public. But what I don't want to do is say it now and then have people worried about it for a year and that type of thing.
I lived through, at least as a taxpayer and as a journalist, through the infamous lid in the Omaha School District, and we can debate whether that was good, bad, whatever. But after the lid, with the exception of a few very, people that would come and would watch and would get involved,
Right.
slacked off.
Right.
To just the handful
Right.
of people that come. We also have schools where I know parents in OPS who say nobody comes to the parent teacher. I think, that there needs to be more involvement with not, like that's my job is to sit and quarterback you, but more involvement. We can't take the largest school district in the state for granted.
Right. And that may be the half full or the pony in the midst of all this stuff, in the sense that people may get more involved, because that's what we want. I mean, it's not, John Lang is 1/12 of a board who was elected, and I'm Joe Q. Public off the street. I'm no expert I happen to have a relationship in my profession to this role, but the 12 of us are just citizens like everybody else. We pay taxes like everyone else. And what I'll say, and this is just John Lang, and you can criticize me, but I'd like to air transport people to some other countries and some other places to see what people get for the taxes that they pay and what taxes they pay. We have services in this country that people don't have a clue that they get when that garbage is picked up, when those schools are offered, and I'm saying, I don't relish more taxes, but I don't think I pay too much in the way of taxes. And I say this kiddingly, not kiddingly, when people are in my face, I say, I'll tell you what, stop the conversation, I'll come over and write you a check for whatever the assessed value of is that says on the county assessor of your house. You know what they say? That's not the point. Because they know even when the assessment was adjusted and got closer to reality, they're still undervaluing the houses in the metro area, period.
So what is the answer? You say that you're going to be looking at things, are you going to deal with the state aid formula and how you feel that this largest school district in the state, with its diverse and multifaceted population, is getting, I shouldn't say that, is getting,
the short end of something.
Short end of it.
And that's a good question, because the week of the election, the Wednesday or Thursday after the election, we were down lobbying the legislature on an attempt by Senator Rake's committee to rewrite the school funding formula. And we're optimistic. We're not adversaries of the state of Nebraska or adversaries of other school districts. We're saying, let's talk about this, and as you rewrite that formula, because the formula is broken, and it's not just broken for Omaha, there are lots of rural districts that face some of the same dilemmas that we face, and the funding is not, it's not flat, it's not equitable in terms of what they do. And so we're trying to get that fixed with Senator Rakes and his committee, and we will lobby in January with the regular legislative session, and that's where we want to solve it. We do not want to go to the courts. That, you know, we get accused of being the 800-pound gorilla for, you know, and that moniker has stuck with us. Well, we are big, and we do have unique issues that we deal with, but all we're saying is give us a fair shake of the monies that are spent in this state for public education, because right now we don't get a fair shake.
I have never seen what probably is a huge volume that contains all the details of the state aid to education formula. I imagine it's not a simple deal. Is that a safe assumption?
Dennis Poole's the only person I know in the world that really understands all of it.
And he works for
and he works for us.
Is it too complicated without solving the problem?
Carol, you're talking to, again, a poor guy from New Jersey who says if Joe Q. Public can't understand at least the basics of it, something's wrong. And I think something's wrong with it. Something's inherently wrong with it if you just look at averages. If you say the average dollars are X, and the kids, the 45,000 youngsters who are the most fragile, who are the most socioeconomically impacted are getting $350 less than the average.
Why didn't you, on your committee
We did.
Citizens Committee, why didn't it say, this is what you're sending to Lincoln, and this is what you're getting back, and this is how it's been cut?
See, and I agree. That would have been much better than putting this laundry list of stuff. I agree with you. That I think, and Dennis has that percentage. He can talk about percentage of the monies, et cetera. We should have done that. I agree with you.
And again, I'm not trying.
Why didn't we hire Carol Schrader?
No,
no, I'm kidding.
I'd be more trouble than I was with. But okay, we've got a minute left. What does John Langan, as president of the board, not just John Langan yourself as a human being and a board member, what do you think is the most important next step?
To bring the board together in workshop session, which we're going to do, to have the administration show us, as I talked about this plan, of dates, timelines, of large items that we're dealing with, of issues that can be dealt with, of where we are and things that we can control, what are the things we can't control, and then start having some hardball conversations about where we go with all of those
with
things.
the public after you've had your little retreat?
And we have to meet in open.
Right.
So it'll be in open.
Where more than so many are gathered, you must have an open meeting.
Thank you very much.
And I want to thank you. This half an hour has gone very fast.
Thank you,
President of the Omaha School Board, John Langan. And remember that you can watch this show or any show online at unotv.unomaha.edu. We thank you for being with us. Stay tuned. There'll be more to listen to about the Omaha School District. And stay tuned for us on Consider This. Thanks.